Well, again, and welcome to this edition of Meet the Candidates 2020 on WCMU Public TV. I'm David Nicholas, this year speaking with our guests virtually, joined this time by Representative Daire Rendon, the Republican candidate for Michigan's 103rd House District race. She is the incumbent in this race, seeking a third term to that office. Congratulations on the primary win. And in our first moment or two, a little bit about you, your background and experience you bring to the campaign.
Thank you, David, and thank you for putting on these interviews. I know it's important to find out about people, and so much of who we are in Lansing depends on what we were before we got there. So I have a background in business. I've been a self-employed business owner for over 30 years. I hate to admit that. And I've lived through some of the tough times, and I have a business today that actually fit very well with what we are going through here as a country with COVID. My husband and I have been married for 48 years. We have 2 daughters who are both married, and we have 3 grandchildren that we're very proud of, like most grandparents. My husband was a builder and past president of the Michigan Association of Home Builders. I also was involved with home builders for many years as a professional association, and with my own company, have been involved in many of the associations here in Michigan for a number of years. So I guess the only other thing I would add to that is that my husband and I, since living here in Lake City for over 35 years, have been members of the St. Stephen's Catholic Church.
And given now your experience not only as an incumbent in this race, but as a candidate once again seeking re-election, you as candidate and the voters you have spoken with, what would you say are the 3 key issues in this campaign, the top 3 as it were?
The top 3 issues in this campaign have to do with, well, first of all, I live in an agricultural area. We have a lot of dairy farms and a lot of farmers. We also have a lot of timber. Logging is a big deal in this area. And so there's a lot of businesses, big businesses that depend on that. I'm going to name some of the biggest ones because here in my rural counties, that makes a difference. And that's Aruco, and that's Beaver Sawmill, and that's Weyerhaeuser. These are all large companies, good employers that depend on the timber and logging industry. We also have tourism. We have some of the most beautiful lakes and rivers in Michigan in my 5-county district, and I'm going to point to Houghton and Higgins Lake. So of the big issues that are important here, always education is in the top. Our rural schools are very proud of what they've done with limited budgets, and I'm very proud of them too. They produced a good education for our kids, and I think that's always going to be one of our top priorities. Also, natural resources, how they're handled. People want clean water. People want to keep their lakes pristine. And the beautiful Asable River, where we have a great big canoe race every year that draws national competitors. And also, when I talk about clean water and natural resources, that brings me back to the timber and the logging and good forest management. And then again, agriculture policies and how we deal with producers who are not small family farms anymore. They're big farms, and they have big needs, and they have big demands on the communities where they're located.
You mentioned in the introduction your own business interests that have been impacted, as so many things have been, by COVID-19. So if we look at all of these key issues through that lens, which we've had to do for this campaign, in the area of agriculture and timber, those 2 economic interests in that area that you hope to represent, what would your proposals be for dealing with a reshaped and or need to restart the economic engines surrounding those post-COVID-19?
Well, I will say this about COVID-19. At the beginning of this, essential businesses were chosen and non-essential businesses were kind of thrown to the side. Agriculture, for the most part, is an essential business. They produce milk, they produce corn, they produce all the crops, all the food. And so they really didn't miss a beat as far as not being able to operate. However, they did have a lot of federal regulations that they had to deal with in keeping their people safe while they're working. So that was tough, and that was an additional expense. Fortunately, money from the federal government got to a lot of those farms and helped them out with those things. And timber, the same type of situation. Those people were considered an essential business, and they basically worked and were allowed to. Part of the reason for that is because of natural resources. We have an oak blight here that is really taking out our oak trees, and we're only allowed to remove them during certain periods of the year. And that's true for several other diseases that the Department of Natural Resources looks after. So they weren't so affected, but other businesses, of course, were dramatically impacted by COVID-19. The reason mine was not so dramatically impacted is I don't deal with the public. My people work on telephones, and phone work and customer service work became critical because we are working from home. And if you had to have any customer service work done for your telephone service or your internet, or if you had a power outage, you found out in a hurry that the customer service was not quite as good as it used to be because everyone is working from home. So a lot of businesses had to figure out how to port all those customer service phone calls to people who are living at home. And when people are at home, they're not home by themselves typically.
If we look at then that telecommunication issue, we've seen that expanded also to an infrastructure question, and this kind of bridges over into your priority on education that you noted as well. Broadband access and Wi-Fi access to a lot of the rural areas, and again, through the lens of COVID-19, the increased demand and usage, what would be your proposals then, now that we have gone through this? How do we address improving that climate and atmosphere and foundation overall, should we ever enter this again, or just simply in the direction of making it better than it has been?
Well, I think we're on the path right now. I know that the USDA has granted some big money towards expanding broadband here in Michigan. And I know the governor has also putting forth a project for expanding broadband. So I see it's coming. It just wasn't here during this crisis. And the other thing we have to realize is our children know how to use it, teachers know how to use it, businesses know how to use it, but our seniors are still not comfortable with it. And I received so many contacts. I even had a lady at my church who was so upset because she couldn't renew her driver's license. I called her on the phone, and I actually entered the computer information for her on the phone through the website because she didn't know how to navigate it. It's very complicated, and seniors are easily frustrated. So I think that's a problem.
If we look at this from the education standpoint, even outside of broadband, it still brought to mind the fact that everybody had to go virtual and online, kind of at shifting in literally one weekend in March, created a lot of stress and strain on the system. Certainly has affected lots of different districts in different ways as we've started the new school year. Is there anything in the area of education that you look at specifically that you would want to address again through this same lens to improve the overall foundation of the education system, making sure that we are better able to serve the students moving forward?
Well, I think it was important that we learn how to do that so that when a crisis comes, children and teachers can quickly move to that platform. But in talking with some of the teachers, they're glad that school has started. They're glad that kids are coming back, but their big concern, and I've had more than one teacher, a couple teachers tell me this, is that there are some children that really need that interaction and to get out of their homes to be at school. And those are the kids they're not seeing come back. And I find that to be very concerning. School is a great outlet for children whose home lives are not so nice. And teachers are great at discovering problems at home and helping children get through those problems. And now they're not getting that opportunity. And so I think that's a problem. Socially
then, or some of the mental health issues that have come into play, and the overall economics of what schools are able to do, what schools have not been able to do, what do you propose to do should you be elected to a third term to help out in this area and make it better for the kids?
Well, I think we need to get our kids back in school, and I'm hoping that that's going to happen really soon. But I do think that we have proven that for some kids, this is a good way for them to learn. And at periods of their life, as they go forward, they may choose to learn in this manner. But I think we need to encourage kids to be in school. I think the interaction with the teacher, I think the interaction with other children is as beneficial as the education itself. And I think that's where our kids belong.
Other sectors of the economy, whether we're talking small businesses, in some case large interests, have certainly felt an economic impact, and some now closing their doors and will not reopen. The challenge is then to securing a smooth path for the overall economic climate in the 103rd District moving forward. What are your proposals there?
Well, I think we have to help, first of all, we have passed some legislation and we have some pending right now that will help businesses and medical providers to have some liability protections for how they responded to this crisis. I think that's critical to know that the state is standing behind these businesses and will protect them if they simply tried to follow the orders so that we could get through this COVID crisis. So I think that's one way we need to do it. And I think going forward, we will see new opportunities as we did during this crisis, when a lot of the PPE that we did not have here initially, because a lot of it was produced in China, is now being produced in the United States. We saw distilleries convert to making hand sanitizers. We saw restaurants really develop a takeout business and found that it worked quite well. So I think the good news is for American small business and for Michigan small business in particular, we are innovative and we can respond so much more quickly than big corporations can. And I saw that. I saw that in my communities, and I bet you did too.
In the last half minute we have with you then, Representative, a final message that you want to leave with the voters or prospective voters in District 103 as they get set to go to the polls.
The final message I would leave is that you vote. Show up and vote. My husband and I will be going to the polls on Election Day. And if you know that you can't do that, it has never been a better time to make arrangements to get your absentee ballot and get that in and vote. And it is important, whether you're voting for a particular party or not, that you make sure you turn that ballot over and look at the nonpartisan section, where you will find the nominees for the Supreme Court. And you will find proposals and maybe even some in your own community. Please take the time to do it and do it right.
Well, thanks very much for talking with us and to the voters in the 103rd District. Stay safe and good luck on the rest of the campaign. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thank you, David.
We have been speaking with Representative Daire Rendon, the Republican candidate for the race for Michigan's 103rd House District, an incumbent seeking a third term to that office. A reminder that all qualifying party candidates for these races were invited to participate in our series. I'm David Nicholas. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you will do so again. And please remember to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd.